Hello, church. Good to be with you again as we have another daily devotional. And we are ending out a series of 4 lessons on how we got the Bible. This is part 4, and this is the last one, I promise. Okay. And here's a question. Does the Bible that we have pass the test? So, lots of people today are asking the question, how can I trust what I am reading? Do we have what we need inside the Bible today, or is there some other books that are outside of the Bible that are missing that should be in there? This has been a controversy for generations and generations. Okay, so we went through this all through our lessons on the acid test. Just a reminder in case you're just jumping in, but if you're going to see if gold is genuine or not, you take nitric acid and you put on it, and if it does not decompose, then you have this. You've got the real deal. That's what we're trying to do with the Bible. We're going, in a sense, put it through the acid test to see if it holds up, to see if it is genuine or not. Now, we have went through the Old Testament and the New Testament. How we got the Old Testament, how we got the New Testament. Then yesterday, we went through how looking at outside writings in New Testament times, do they match up? And we saw that they didn't, and that's why they're not in the Bible. Today we're going to look at Old Testament writings, and that's going to bring us to the books of the Apocrypha. Okay? And these are Old Testament books, and they are books of controversy. Okay? So we're dealing with Old Testament writings that are outside of the Bible, and do they belong in the Bible? That's what we're going to discuss today. So, when you come to this phrase, the Apocrypha, there are differing lists, okay? So some will have a list of books, some will have a few extra books, some will have a few less books. There's a lot of different writings out there that people think that should be in the Old Testament or are debated if they should be or not, okay? Here's just a few of those lists. So, we're dealing with the Old Testament and the Old Testament times. Now, one of the ways we can tell if the Bible, the Old Testament, is legitimate or not is that other writers confirm it. Okay, and we've seen this in our second study, or in our first study actually, on the Old Testament, that other writers do confirm it. Daniel will talk about Jeremiah. Jeremiah will talk about Daniel. Daniel will fulfill what Isaiah said. Isaiah was pointing to Daniel. Jesus was talked about in the Old Testament. Jesus will refer back to people of the Old Testament. They refer to Jesus in the Old Testament. Back and forth, back and forth. You have all these confirmations of the Bible. But when we come to these Apocrypha books, these books that are outside, this is what we do not find. We do not find the people of the Old Testament quoting, or even the New Testament, quoting from these books of the Apocrypha. They're not included. They don't make reference to them. They don't, I don't know, am I using the right word? Collaborate with each other. So when we're doing the acid test, in that area, those books do not match. It does not pass the acid test. Now, historically accurate. We know that the books of the Old Testament are historically accurate. They talk about real rulers, pharaohs, Egypt, Hittites, things like that, that really exist, real people. They were always right on the money. But when we get to the books of the Apocrypha, we see that some of the books are historically accurate. We've went through in our Daniel class Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2, and we've seen that they were very historically accurate and matched up perfectly with what Daniel prophesied. But there are other books in the groupings that are not historically accurate. In fact, I've been reading this morning from the book of Judith and looking online and seeing if that is historically accurate or not. And it makes up people and stories that has no collaboration with history whatsoever. And so for that, these other books are not historically accurate. So some are and some aren't. So in that sense, though, we have to have 100% to have them in the Old Testament. And so I would say that it does not, again, pass the acid test. Okay, now we mentioned about the Old Testament, and the Old Testament books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. All of those books were found except for the book of Esther in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Remember in 1947, this little boy was throwing rocks, and he threw a rock up in that cave and broke something and shattered a pot. And they went up, the boy looked up in there and found all these scrolls, and what they were copies of the Old Testament. They were all in there, okay? Now, how is this helpful to us? Because this confirms that the prophecies about Jesus were written prior to the time of Jesus coming, not after. Because again, these were written by the Essenes about 400 to 250 years before Jesus got here. So that gave confirmation that our Old Testament is accurate, okay? And it matched up with the older writings that we had after the cross. And so these writings that were written way before this and the writings that we have after this matched up perfectly, again giving confirmation. But here's what we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We find that when we come to the Apocrypha books, that we do find some of the Apocrypha books were actually found in those caves. The book Wisdom of Ben Syria, the book of Tobit, and the Epistle of Jeremiah. Okay, now these are just a little bit of the books that were found, and they were only partial. But many, almost all of the other books, which is a huge amount of the Apocrypha, are not found. And so the point is this: apparently the Essenes did not put much focus on these books of the Apocrypha, and they did not include them in their writings. So that's another way to say, hey, are these books legitimate or not? And apparently they're not. So, Dead Sea Scrolls, there were only part of these books found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And for the majority of the books of the Apocrypha, they were not included in the Essenes' writings. So they didn't put much focus on them. Okay, now, does some of these books or these books of the Apocrypha, do they contradict the Bible? Now, in the Old Testament, when we look at the Old Testament did not contradict itself. Okay, all right? But when we come to the books of the Apocrypha, look what we find happen. Now we're going to come over here to 2 Maccabees 12. Now, I told you that Maccabees is a very historically accurate book. Its history that is told fulfills the predictions that Daniel foretold in the book of Daniel. Okay? But even though it's historically accurate and we can use it for that, watch what is also found in the book of Maccabees. Now here's Maccabees writing, and it says, and they turned to supplication, praying that the sin that had been committed might be wholly blotted out. The noble Judas Maccabees, exhorted the people to keep themselves free from sin, for they had seen with their own eyes what had happened as a result of the sin of those who had fallen. Now remember the book of Maccabees. Here's Antiochus Epiphanes. He comes in and destroys from the Grecian Empire Israel, desecrates the temple, and Maccabees come in, they fight these people, and they drive them off. But while that was going on, lots of Jewish people were killed. So Maccabees saves the day. Now, watch what he's doing here. He's praying that the sins that had be committed would be fully or wholly blotted out. He's talking about the people who have died, the godly people of Israel. Okay? Praying that their sins may be blotted out. Now, it says in verse 43, he also took up a collection man by man to the amount of 2,000 drachmas of silver and sent it to Jerusalem to provide for a sin offering. So they are doing a sin offering, what? Based or for the sins of the people who had died. Okay? And they're taking a collection. In doing this, he acted very well and honorably, taking account of the resurrection. For if he were not expecting that those who had fallen would rise again, it would have been superfluous and foolish to pray for the dead. But if he was looking to the splendid reward that is laid up for those who fall asleep in godliness, it was holy and a pious thought. Therefore, he made atonement for the dead, so that they might be delivered from their sins. Now, you just think about this. So this is what this guy's doing. It's recording what he did. He is trying to make atonement for the sins on behalf of dead people. Now, here's a question. Is this biblical? And the answer is no, it is not biblical. This is not how we make atonement for sins of people. Now, remember who does this practice and where are these books found? They are found in what? This Catholic Bible. I went to a Catholic funeral and the Catholic priest opens up his book and he selects different verses to read. When he was reading verses on this person who had died, he actually reads these verses out of the Maccabees because they're found in their Bible. And this is where the concept of purgatory comes from. Praying on the behalf of the dead, paying on the behalf of the dead, collecting money on the behalf of the dead. How are our sins atoned for? It's only through Jesus. It's not something that we can do. We can't buy them atonement. We can't pray for their sins to be removed, right? That is only found through Jesus. So even though this book is historically accurate, it contradicts truth of the Bible. And for that reason, unlike the Old Testament that we have, yes, this does contradict. And there is some theologies in these books that are contradicting to the Bible. Thus, it does not pass the acid test. The Old Testament scriptures were inspired by God, right? All scripture is God-breathed. But what do we find in Maccabees 4? That they were looking for a prophet, but no prophet could be found. So what is Maccabees doing when he's writing with his own pen? He is admitting that I am not a prophet. I am not inspired by God. These words are not breathed by God, even though it was historically accurate. And we see that when we get to chapter 2, that he is doing things that is unbiblical. Okay? So therefore, when we get to the Apocrypha and these outside books, they are not inspired by God. Do you see the difference? Conclusion. Therefore, these outside writings of the Old Testament times do not stand up to the acid test like our Old Testament writings do. Thus, they do not belong in the Bible. So there you have it. You've got our books of the Old Testament. You've got our books of the New Testament. And I want you to know that those books, they pass the test. Unlike these other writings that are found outside of the Bible. So we can trust what we have and to know that it contains in there what we need to do to get to heaven. I hope these studies have been helpful to you, and I hope that you pass these on to other people if they are struggling with the reliability of the Bible and how we can trust it. We had to go pretty fast. There was lots more we could talk about, but because of time, We just don't have the time to do that. So God bless you. Hope to see you in our classes on Daniel Sunday morning. And if you got any questions, please give me a holler. Come see me. I'd love to discuss these things with you. See you next time.